The story begins with a girl named Jang Dan-bi, a high school senior who is terrible at studying. Her worst subject is math, and she often falls asleep in class. One day, her teacher calls her to the board to solve a problem, but just like always, she goes completely blank. The teacher scolds her in front of everyone. After all, the college entrance exam is tomorrow. Dan-bi may be hopeless at studying, but music is a different story. She can identify any singer from just a few seconds of a melody. Her mom says if she used that same talent for math, she'd be a genius by now. Then she switches the TV to a historical drama, which only irritates Dan-bi more. Fed up with the constant pressure, Dan-bi goes out to eat with her best friend. But her friend is just as stressed, terrified that failing tomorrow's exam will ruin everything. Dan-bi can't understand how one test can decide someone's whole life. Still, deep down, she just wishes she could disappear. The next morning, she wakes up late and rushes out the door. Her mom tries to put breakfast into her bag, but it is already packed with snacks. Dan-bi explains that this is her stress relief method. Her mom keeps encouraging her, but it only makes her even more anxious. She crams all the way to the test center, then realizes she left her umbrella on the bus and has to run through the rain. But as soon as she reaches the school gate, panic completely takes over. One thought keeps looping in her mind. What if I fail? The fear hits so hard that she runs away and hides in a nearby park. Her friend texts her asking why she hasn't shown up, but Dan-bi doesn't answer. She just quietly prays, "Please, just make me disappear this once." Suddenly, she hears a deep drum-like sound nearby. She follows it and finds herself at the edge of a strange pit. She carefully steps in and realizes it has no bottom. The next moment, she sees people in ancient clothes performing a ritual. They say it has not rained in 3 years and the whole kingdom is on the verge of collapse. Everyone thinks the ceremony has failed again. Then, dark clouds gather overhead. The high priest cries out in joy, "Heaven has heard us. Joseon will finally have rain." At that exact moment, Dan-bi jumps into the pit, but instead of dying, she rises out of a huge water jar as if she has entered another world. She panics and asks if they're filming a historical drama. King Lee-do is startled by her bizarre behavior and demands to know whether she is human or some kind of witch. Flustered, she says she is just a high school student. But the king assumes she is some kind of assassin and orders the guards to draw their swords. One blade grazes her hand, and that is when she realizes this is real. She has actually traveled through time. Just then, a priest rushes in and declares that she is the heavenly messenger sent to end the drought. Dan-bi immediately remembers the historical drama she watched the night before. She raises her hand and shouts, "Let it rain!" Everyone falls to their knees and repeats her words. But while no one is looking, Dan-bi slips away and hides. She quickly disguises herself as a court official, but accidentally wanders into the royal assembly. There, King Lee-do announces that he wants to abandon superstition and use science and mathematics to save the kingdom. A minister opposes him, saying this will bring ruin, and insists the drought will only end when the king and queen finally complete their marriage. In truth, that minister is the queen's father, and he wants power for himself. While people are distracted, Dan-bi tries to search for her phone, but she is caught again. Soon, a sword is pressed to her neck. The king looks at her strange clothes and says she must be a spy from an enemy country. In panic, Dan-bi blurts out that she is a student from the future. No one believes her. In desperation, she adds one more thing. She's a math expert. That gets the king's attention. Lee-do tests her with a Pythagorean problem and gives her 2 days to solve it. At first, Dan-bi is completely lost trying to read the old writing. But the moment she realizes it is just the Pythagorean theorem, she solves it in seconds. The king is stunned. Even his greatest scholars could not solve it. So he offers her a deal. If she teaches him mathematics, he will let her go. Dan-bi cannot believe it. Just hours ago, she was the worst student in class. Now, she is suddenly the smartest person in Joseon. From that day on, Dan-bi begins teaching King Lee-do math in secret. She is shocked to learn that he barely knows the basics, so she starts from the beginning. Addition, subtraction, then multiplication. The king studies constantly, even while walking and during meetings. But Dan-bi's life is not comfortable. She is always exhausted, always hungry, and constantly under pressure. During one practice session, the king gives a wrong answer, and Danby flicks him on the forehead. The servants rush in, but the king stops them. Then, in the next round, he catches her mistake and jokingly threatens her back. Just then, Queen Sejong walks in, and they quickly hide all the math papers and pretend they were practicing music. Later, the king notices Danby is starving and invites her to eat with him. But she finds palace food completely bland, so she uses the snacks in her bag to make spicy rice cakes. The king looks down on it at first, but after one bite, he is completely shocked by how good it is. The next day, his stomach is in chaos and he thinks Danby must have cursed him. She patiently explains that it is not a curse, it is just indigestion. Seeing how curious he is, she starts teaching him more than just math. She explains how the body works, how the heart beats, and even how farming can improve. With Danby's help, Joseon slowly starts improving in both medicine and agriculture. The king becomes more and more impressed by her. One day he gives everyone a precious orange as a reward and hands one to Danby. He is horrified when she eats it immediately. To him, a fruit that valuable should be treasured for days. But Danby laughs and says it is just an orange. Their relationship becomes playful, and for the first time, the king seems truly relaxed around someone. That evening, after offering to walk her home, he starts wondering whether what he feels is love. Instead of going himself, he sends Park Yeon, the court musician, to escort her home. The next day, the queen's maid secretly puts a love powder into food meant for the king. But the king, feeling guilty for making Danby wait, gives the food to her instead. Later that night, under the powder's effect, Danby blurts out her feelings. The king nearly kisses her, but stops himself at the last second. When she comes back to her senses, she is humiliated, but the king does not punish her. Instead, he gently offers her a future in Joseon, a high position, even a royal horse. But Danby says that when it rains, she plans to go back to her own world. The king quietly tells her that because of her, he can finally breathe easily again. From now on, he says, she should not think of him as a king. They are equals, friends. But the very next day, the ministers turn on her. They accuse her of insulting the queen and demand punishment. The king steps in and protects her, saying her knowledge is too valuable to lose. Cornered, the ministers give her an impossible challenge. If she can build a device that tells time without the sun in 2 weeks, she will be forgiven. Even the king's closest people think it is impossible. Danby overhears this and feels crushed. If you've ever been underestimated, like this video and subscribe, because this story gets even better. But with Park Yeon's help, she begins working on a water clock day and night. Meanwhile, the king misses her badly. He keeps looking at the smiling orange she gave him, and one night, he secretly goes to see her. Later, Danby finds a smiley face drawn in her notebook and immediately understands that he came to encourage her. At last, she finishes the calculations. Then suddenly, heavy rain begins to pour. Danby touches the puddle forming at the doorway and realizes it really is the passage back to the modern world. But instead of feeling relieved, she realizes she does not want to leave. At the same time, the king remembers her words and runs through the rain to reach her. He finds her standing before the water clock in tears. He takes her hand and presses it to his chest. He confesses that he tried to forget her and failed. Then he pulls her into his arms. Afterward, he tells her she should escape by boat. But Danby refuses. She says she has spent her whole life running away, and this time she wants to stay and face things properly. Just then, Park Yeon leads her away into the forest, and suddenly draws his blade against her neck. He admits that he was sent as a spy to eliminate her. But he cannot do it. He has known all along that she is a girl, and he never exposed her. Danby explains that she never meant to deceive anyone. She had no other choice. Back at the palace, the minister pressures the king to erase everything Danby has taught him because her knowledge threatens their power. The king refuses and leaves the palace to find her. Meanwhile, Queen Sejong starts piecing everything together. When she sees the smiling orange in the king's room, she realizes that Danby is a girl. Later, when she learns Park Yeon has fled with Danby, she goes after them herself. To move faster, she throws off her heavy ceremonial headdress. By the time she finds him alive, her feet are bleeding. Only then do we learn that Queen Sohyeon and Park Yeon were childhood friends and that she married the king only because her father forced her to. For the first time, she faces what her heart has always known. In the forest, assassins close in. Park Yeon tells Danbi to run first, and she gives him a small utility knife, which barely saves his life. Meanwhile, Danbi struggles to control a panicking horse, but suddenly remembers the horse riding dance from Gangnam Style and uses that rhythm to calm it down. She opens her phone, checks the compass, reads the sun's direction, and heads toward the sea. At the shore, Danbi watches the sunset. Then Lee Do arrives on horseback, kisses her, and holds her tightly. That night, Danbi finally tells him the truth about the future. As proof, she shows him a star map on her phone, but the battery is dying fast. They look up at the night sky together, and Danbi says that in the future, people can barely see stars anymore. The king gently tells her that the stars never left, people just stopped looking carefully enough. Later, he tells her that he wants to create a new writing system simple enough for ordinary people to learn, not just the rich. Danbi suddenly pulls out a banknote from her pocket and sees his face printed on it. In that moment, she realizes that he really will change history. The next morning, Danbi notices algae blocking the flow of water in a nearby stream and suddenly understands why her water clock failed. She rushes back, fixes the design, and finally makes it work. The king immediately calls a meeting and announces that Danbi will be pardoned and given an official position. The ministers are furious, but he refuses to back down. He secretly continues learning from her. At the same time, Danbi grows closer to Queen Sohyeon. She finds the queen secretly eating alone in the kitchen. Her father controls how much she eats, afraid her value will drop if she gains weight. Danbi feels for her and makes instant noodles. The queen takes one bite and is completely hooked. Slowly, she opens up and shows Danbi a dress design she wants to fill with colors that look like starlight. Danbi adjusts the drawing and holds it up against the night sky, and a dress shimmering like a map of stars takes shape. The queen is overwhelmed and orders that Danbi be rewarded. Not long after, Danbi is bathed, dressed in beautiful robes, and told that she is to stay with the king that night. She panics when she learns that the Queen Dowager has officially made her a royal concubine. She runs and hides, but the king finds her. Through tears, she tells him he promised they were only friends and reminds him that she is only 19. He gently reassures her. He will not do anything to her, and staying in the palace is the safest place she could be right now. Then he reveals something he has kept to himself since the beginning. He knew all along that she was a girl. He had heard someone call her Nuna the day she arrived, but he kept silent because he wanted to stay close to her. Before leaving, he tells her she looks beautiful. That night, neither of them can sleep. In the dark, the king quietly asks her, "The next time it rains, don't go." He admits that at first he wanted to use her knowledge to strengthen his kingdom, but now none of that matters. All he wants is for her to stay. Danbi is torn apart inside. She misses her mother and her friend, but she no longer knows what her heart truly wants. Then, the Queen Dowager herself comes to see her. The moment Danbi sees her, she bursts into tears. The Queen Dowager looks exactly like her real mother. The Queen Dowager takes her hand and holds her gently. Soon after, the king brings Danbi into his study and shows her something extraordinary, a 28-character writing system that anyone can learn, not just the wealthy or the powerful. He says, "No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, everyone can master this." Danbi is speechless. She is watching history being born in front of her eyes. Then, the king places a hairpin in her hair, a symbol of marriage in Joseon, and asks her to stay with him forever. But through tears, Danbi says she wants to go back. Her mother is waiting for her. The king softly tells her to go see her mother and then return, or the three of them could simply live here together. Danbi shakes her head. She removes the hairpin and gives it back. Hurt and angry, the king walks away, leaving her alone. Then everything falls apart. An assassin attacks Danbi, strikes her on the head, stabs her, and sets the study on fire. Even unconscious, she keeps clutching the hairpin in her fist. When Queen Sohyeon discovers her father's plot, she runs to warn the king. He throws himself into the flames without hesitation, and in that moment, he understands that keeping Danbi in Joseon will only cost her her life. The next morning, the king publicly confronts the minister. Danby confirms she heard the assassin's voice, and it turns out the textbook in her bag absorbed the blow and saved her life. The minister falls to his knees and pleads, if this new writing spreads, young people will speak too freely, discipline will collapse, and the world will fall into chaos. But the king refuses to back down. He declares that he will give this writing system to the people. Afterward, Danby gives him a history book and tells him his dream will come true. The king is stunned that the book survived the fire, and in that moment, he fully believes she really did come from the future. He exhales slowly and says, "My dream is no longer the kingdom. It is you, but I cannot bear to keep you here if it means you will suffer." Then the sky darkens. Rain begins to fall. Both of them know it is time to say goodbye. Danby says farewell to everyone. Then the king personally walks her all the way to the sea. There, they share one final beautiful kiss. And then he lets her go. Silently, he makes a promise. No matter how much time passes, he will find her again. Moments later, Danby rises through a small puddle in the park and returns to her own world. Only seconds have passed. She runs to the exam hall just as the entrance exam begins. The first question on the history section asks who helped King Sejong with his greatest inventions. The answer is Jang Yong-sil. And in that instant, Danby understands. None of it was a dream. She was part of real history. When she gets home, she throws her arms around her mother. The journey has taught her how precious the people around her really are. Still, every time she sees a small pool of water, she thinks of the king. Then one day, in sudden rain, an umbrella appears over her head. The man holding it looks exactly like him. He smiles and says, "We've met before, a long time ago." And it turns out that on the day of the exam, he had already seen her, already been drawn to her, and had been the one who picked up the umbrella she left behind. This is where their story begins again, in a different world this time.